Okay, so I'm really excited today because I don't ever actually really deep dive into my story. And a part of this is because I think I'm scared to relive how bad it got, but I'm also scared to tell you. I'm scared to tell you because I'm worried that you won't believe me or you won't see me the same way. Um, or you'll look at me and you'll actually think like, oh, I don't relate to that, or I don't really relate to her, or I don't actually really trust her. And whether or not any of that is true, I think that's actually a really important piece of where I, or how I got to where I am today. And I'm also excited to talk about the transition piece because it was really important. And when I went on this journey, it was honestly something that I've always wanted to do, and I felt like I was watching other people do it and other people go on this journey. And I felt like because of my story, because of my history, it was impossible for me. That I was destined to be stuck in this sort of quasi recovery kind of state, just learning to deal with it consistently, like yo yo dieting, and literally always thinking about food. And I think that was one thing that I was kind of told, whether it was implicitly or explicitly during my treatment, that like that part of you will never go away. You're always going to have that in your head. You're just going to have to learn to deal with it. Always thinking about food, always worrying about your body, always struggling with that. Just deal with it. So, 4 years ago, when I actually learned to shut that piece up, I don't even really know how to find the words to describe that, other than it feels like that other piece of my story happened to a different person. And I literally feel so disconnected from that person. And like in a way, I think that's a good thing. Um, I am a whole new person now. That was like a different life. But I also feel like kind of having any kind of disconnect with yourself, I kind of wish there was a part of me that could still kind of tap into that and validate that part. But it really does feel like that person and that life is different. And this life, this vision board life, this dream life, this is the life that, I thought I was watching other people live from afar through rose tinted glasses, and just thinking like, I really wish that could be me, but it's not. And now I want to share how I did that. And I talk a lot about how I struggled with yo yo dieting and binging and overeating. And some of you might know that I actually come from like an eating disorder background. I was 13 when I was diagnosed with anorexia. I was literally just a kid. And I went into my first treatment center when I was 13. And I was actually diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, which really changed how I ate and how I saw my food, and like turned everything sort of on its head. And I really struggled with, trying to be the perfect kid, the perfect daughter, the perfect student, the perfect dancer. And I thought that if I perfected my eating, or I was like the perfect diabetic, then people would praise me and they would love me and they would care about me. Or like if I fit into this perfect body, then everything would be okay. And I really struggled with that concept for like decades. And I didn't actually have love for my body or love for myself. I was just chasing this impossible perfection because I thought that's what I needed to be deserving of like anything from anyone. And it got really dangerous when I was in my late teens and my early 20s. And I think that this part is really hard to talk about. And I don't talk about it ever. And that's when, like, my diabetes and my eating disorder really morphed into one. Um, it's what is known as diabulimia, and I don't even know if that's a recognized term yet. And when I was sick, my doctors told me that it wasn't a recognized term, which was just so invalidating. But basically, the more I ate and didn't take my insulin, the more weight I lost. And when you have an eating disorder, that kind of sounds like the magic pill, like the ultimate dream. I ate whatever I wanted. I ate everything so much, and my weight plummeted. And I remember feeling like, this is amazing. Like, it's so great. This is the best thing ever, which is so distorted. It's so distorted. And now that I say it now, like, I was just thinking, like, wow, I took so much pleasure in abusing my body, starving it of what it needed, not just food, but life saving insulin. I was watching it scream at me through this tiny dying frame. My body saying, this is hurting me. And I was like, oh, this is just great. Like, it just makes me so disgustingly sad today. And that's, what I mean when I say, like, and I don't want this to sound like a pity party, but this is probably one of the most dangerous eating disorders. It's so dangerous. And I was living the consequences of that. I was in the ICU several times. I was in the emergency room probably like every 5 days. Um, and I remember running into a few people who were kind of doing the same thing I was, or they just like simply weren't taking care of their diabetes because like living with diabetes is hard. And I remember them like begging me to stop. They talked about how painful it is and how their life and their body is literally falling apart. And it's not worth a body. And I literally remember looking at them and being like, yeah, it is. And it's not about the body. My body was ravaged. It wasn't the body that I thought I wanted. It was about disappearing. It was about coping with what I didn't want to cope with. And it was about thinking that it would mean that people would take care of me and care for me. And in fact, it pushed everyone away. My family cut me off. I lost my partner. I lost so many friends. I could not hold down a job. How can you hold down a job when you're in and out of the hospital? I dropped out of school 3 times. I stopped dancing when I was 22, and I've never been able to go back. And I never will be able to go back. I have permanent injuries because of my eating disorder. I have a really strained relationship with my sister. Even now, she holds me at arm's length. And it was so hard to recover. I was so sick. But if I'm honest, I'm always honest with you. Every time I went into treatment, it was like a little bit easy. I remember going in and kind of feeling like, okay, I don't have to worry about this anymore. Everyone else can worry about it. Someone else is taking care of what I eat, my insulin, my medication. I don't have to think about it. And like, it doesn't mean that it wasn't absolutely terrifying to have no control over what I ate, having someone else take over all the control, having no control over my body and the foods that I ate and the way that my body was changing. That was immensely terrifying. And I was so scared to go through that, but at the same time there was a part of me that was like, I can just shut my brain off and like go through this motion and let it happen. And physical recovery is pretty straightforward. You put on the weight, you get discharged, you go home, you go back out into the real world. And this is one of the issues that I think is so real of our treatment system in our hospitals. It's just like this kind of like revolving door. I was in and out, I think 7 or 8 times in treatment. And I went in for the last time when I was like 25, 26. I finished, I came out, and I was actually doing pretty well. But like I didn't, like, I had no coping mechanisms. My weight was stable. I was taking care of my diabetes. I was eating the meal plan. I was doing everything you're supposed to do. But I had no idea when those really tough feelings happened, or, I had a really awful body image day. I had no coping mechanisms other than to just sit through it and ride the wave. And like, God damn it, that made me want to tear my hair out. So I turned to binging again. I turned to the things that I knew how to do that would numb me out. I turned to drinking. I turned to whatever I could. And it was around this time that I had met my partner, who would now become my husband. And I was going down a bad path again. We were planning a trip to Japan, which I've talked about a few times. And I remember my mom and my therapist saying, cancel your trip, you're going to treatment. And I thought, fuck this. No, I'm not. I'm not doing this again. I'm not canceling my trip. I'm not canceling my life again. I'm not doing this anymore. And I was able to start taking my insulin and put on a bit of the weight that I had lost and kind of get myself to a physically stable place, because I had done that so many times. Like, I in treatment, I knew how to do that. So I did that on my own. And that was hard. That was incredibly difficult. But I did that, and then I kind of like hit this wall. And that's where I stayed for about 6 years, just doing what I needed to do to stay stable and keep my life where it was. Like, I was taking my insulin, I was eating like kind of what I thought I was supposed to based off of like meal plans that I'd had in the past. My weight was relatively stable. I went to Japan. Um, and I mean, it was an amazing trip, but what I remember about that trip, honestly, is like it kills me. But like, I remember worrying about what I was eating and how much I was walking and what I looked like in pictures and how my clothes felt on my body. And what I remember thinking and experiencing is like, like when I look at pictures, I have so many pictures, and sometimes I look back and I remember how I felt that day because I felt fat, or I felt exhausted because we'd been walking around and I wasn't eating properly, or I felt guilty because I remember the snacks we bought and I binged on them in the hotel room. And I remember that about the trip. I I remember being this stupid quasi recovery state. I remember like missing out on the miso buns, and I talk about like fucking missing out on croissants in Paris. And it was just this really stupid place in my life to be, where I had a partner, I had friends, my family was speaking to me again, I was repairing my relationship with my sister, I had a job, I had a great job, I was traveling, I had beat the eating disorder because I wasn't in treatment. But I was still at war with myself every single day. And I think binging and overeating is a much more common coping mechanism than we honestly realize. And like, even people who are recovering from anorexia or not, the body can only go with restriction for so long. Whether it's an eating disorder or whether it's a restrictive diet in any kind of way, at some point this like binge restrict cycle happens. And I think because both I came from a restrictive background, and I honestly kind of got like addicted to binging in my diabulimia phase, that was one of the hardest things to heal from. That was one of the hardest coping mechanisms, because everything, like a tough day at work, I would binge. I got a promotion, I would binge. I was anxious, I would binge. I was stressed, I would binge. I was bored, I would binge. And it was like anything that was happening, it would be like, let me bring down this heightened emotion, even if it's a good emotion, with food and sugar and fat and salts and all of those like foods that we tend to binge on, that we tend to like overeat and crave. And this was my life for so long. Going to food as a coping mechanism for whatever was going on in my life, and losing myself in a binge or a bottle of wine, and feeling like crap and hating my body, and waking up the next day and be like, okay, here's my meal plan, here's how I'm going to fix it, here's how I'm going to get back on track, my workout plan, here's what I'm going to do, and try so hard to stick to this and repair what I had done, and go back to the perfection, go back to the mold, and I guess like be safe from the binges. And that was my life. And yeah, I had all those things that like a normal girl, like a job, a partner, like I said, I was doing all the things. I looked pretty normal, but that incessant in the back of my mind thinking about food, whether it was planning a binge or trying to stay on track after a binge. Like that never went away. And my body image was in the toilet. And I beat myself up and I had this like buzz in my head all the time. And I think that what kept me there is that I got this message that this is as good as it gets when you recover from an eating disorder. That this never goes away. That you have this buzz and these thoughts. So like, yeah, this is recovery. You did it. That's all. You're not in the hospital. You did it. This is your life. And I feel like I settled for a really long time. And this sort of rock bottom didn't happen when I went to Japan and didn't eat the miso bun. It didn't happen when I went to Paris and didn't eat a croissant the entire time I was there. It happened during the pandemic. And I think during the pandemic, it got worse because I had nothing to think about other than my body and my food. So I joined Beachbody. I joined an MLM. And I had all of the time to think about food. The liquor stores were an essential service, so I always had alcohol around. And I went hard over exercising, drinking, binging, writing down meal plans, getting back on track, trying to distract myself from food, and this cycle going on over and over and over. So I think like when I did hit my rock bottom, I was doing a workout at home. It was one of the like the Beachbody workouts, and I finished, and I was so exhausted. I was so hungry, and it was like 3 in the afternoon. We all know that 3 p.m. slump anyway, but I was so hungry, and I remember my head just going back and forth between, okay, what can I eat? Going through my fridge, okay, I can't eat that because that has too many calories. And if I eat that, then I'm gonna go overboard and I'm probably gonna get fat. And if I eat this, I know I won't stop at just one, even though that's kind of what I want. I know I'm gonna eat the whole thing. I don't wanna eat the whole thing. I don't wanna binge. I just wanna eat a little bit because I wanna stick to my meal plan. So maybe I'll eat something really low calorie so I can eat a ton of volume. So I will feel really full, but it's not a ton of calories like veggies. And I can stuff my face and I can feel really good. But then I won't have a lot of calories. But then I'm going to feel so sick and my stomach's going to be distended, and I don't want to do that. So maybe I just won't have anything. And I fell on the couch crying. I was crying. I was sobbing. And my husband walked in. He was like, "Oh my God, what's wrong? Like, what's happening?" And I had no idea how to articulate what was going on in my head, like this back and forth. Like, how do I explain that? And all I could get out was that I just want to be normal. And I think I had no idea. Like, that was the first time I had said that out loud, and I don't even think I knew what that meant when I said I just want to be normal. But I was so encompassed by these thoughts. I think I meant I just don't want this buzz. I don't want this obsession. I don't want to look in the mirror and hate what I see. If I want a fucking cookie, I want to eat a cookie, and I don't want it to turn into a binge. I don't want to feel like I can't have Cheetos in the house because if I do, I'm just gonna eat the whole bag and I can't just have like a few or a handful or a bowl like a normal fucking person. Like I want to be able to go to dinner and enjoy time with you and not worry about getting either the lowest calorie item or actually going full on a binge while we're out. Like, I want to be able to enjoy a glass or two of wine and not feel like I have to finish the whole bottle. I just want to be normal, and I feel like I didn't have the capacity to do that. And I don't know what part of me at this point sort of decided to just go find normal. This is not good enough. This life isn't good enough. And I started working with a coach and a therapist, and my goal was really to heal my relationship with food and just eat normally at the time. And I'd never heard of intuitive eating. I'd never heard of food freedom. And I don't even think I really became aware of these terms until like pretty far into this recovery piece. And I think if I had, it might have derailed me because I understand why there's so many misconceptions around food freedom and intuitive eating and why so many people think like it doesn't work for them. Because at that point, if you had said, I'm going to teach you how to eat whatever you want, whenever you want, I would have been like, but all I want is to eat pasta and cake and donuts and Cheetos and cookies and ice cream. Like, I don't want to eat that way. I just want to eat normally and balanced. Like, I want that part to be effortless. I don't want to eat whatever I want because what I want is not what I asked for. I want to be able to be healthy and happy and energized and thriving and know how to feed myself and know how to do that. That's how I want to eat. I don't want to eat everything that I'm craving all the time that makes me feel awful. Um, and I think people were kind of selling intuitive eating that way, and it would have sent me running for the hills. I would have been like, no, 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 that's not what I want. I just want to love my body. I want to eat healthy. I want to be healthy. I want to be strong. I'm not interested in eating whatever I want all the time. So in a way, I feel like not having a definition of intuitive eating was actually helpful. And like, let me tell you, that's not even the definition of intuitive eating. But I think a lot of people, especially in the online space, kind of condense it into this term. And it's just eating whatever you want whenever you want. And like, oh my God, it's not. Because like I said, if that had been like a recipe for disaster for me, someone with a binging background, like, no, I just want it to be normal. I want it to be healthy. I want it to be easy. I want to be able to understand what it means when I'm hungry, what it means when I'm full, what it means when I'm craving, and be able to understand those and feel those and live that way. So that was my goal. That was how I went into it. I think honestly, it being the pandemic, I was kind of lucky because I wasn't working. I was trapped at home. I lived in sweatpants. I didn't have the everyday distractions of like life away from my house. I could focus this on like 110%. And I think that if I would do the same journey now, it would look different. Like it would probably take longer because I have a job and a dog, and I see friends on the regular, and I wear clothes that cling differently to my body. And I think in a way, just being able to be like in my own space and kind of not have anyone see me go through these transformations was like kind of another blessing. Because my body did transform, and to kind of go through this privately and on my own, um, I think was really helpful. And again, I'm not lying to you. I don't lie to you guys. Your body goes through some crazy shit when she's healing. And I just had to like keep remembering that I don't have all the answers. And what I was doing before was not working. So I have to trust that maybe the answer is in something else. And I'm going to give it time to work itself out. And at the end of this, if I truly feel like this was all bullshit, all garbage, and I hate it, I can go back to what I was doing before. I can go back to dieting. I can go back to restricting. I can do that. I'm allowed to. No one's stopping me. But let me give this a chance, and let me give my body a chance to figure this out. So, the transformation. I made a lot of changes right away. And I think the biggest changes I made were that mindset of surrendering to the process. And this is so important. And I never did that in treatment. I always had my guard up. I was always like, you guys don't know what you're talking about. Or like, you know, I got really scared when my body was changing. Or like, this is a bad thing. So I tried to compensate. But surrendering to the process was huge. And the second thing I did pretty much right away, like day one, was I started eating more. And I think this is one of the pieces of advice that people really struggle with. And honestly, I did too. Because I started this experience and like immediately I got extreme hunger. And I kind of knew that like I was being restrictive, I was on a diet, I probably wasn't eating enough. Um, but in my head, I also had like this thought of, but I'm binging. So I'm getting more than enough calories. I'm getting food. I don't need to eat more. But in the vein of like starting this process and trusting the process, I ate more and I got more hungry. Like I kind of got freaked out because I would like skip breakfast. And then I started having breakfast and I was like, I am hungrier throughout the day than if I don't have breakfast. So now I'm eating more. And I had this insane fear of like, I'm just going to gain a ton of weight and it's not going to stop and I'm going to get fat. And like, this is a mistake. This is the reverse of what I wanted. I wanted to be healthy and now I feel like I can't control my hunger. And it was also like it was so necessary to keep going with this piece around repairing my metabolism and allowing my body to heal from literally decades of abuse I put it through. Like I had no idea how to do that. It was in survival mode. It was scrambling like food. Okay, like we got to start doing something with this. We've got to start storing it. We've got to start using it for energy. We've got to start repairing the fat loss. And like that's scary. That's really scary because you can see some of that on your body. I'm not going to lie. It really messed up my relationship with my body, and I felt like I was at war with her. So when I was eating more, when I was repairing my metabolism, when I was fueling myself, I had to remind myself she's just a body. She's not vindictive. She's not holding a grudge against me. She's not doing this to me. She's only doing what she can with what I'm giving her. So I'm going to start giving her what she needs and I'm going to let her sort it out. I'm going to feed her enough, I'm not going to restrict. I'm going to try not to binge as much. I'm going to try not to drink as much. And like none of this happened cold turkey. Like I started fueling my hunger and I started eating more and it was terrifying. And it also meant that my metabolism was rising and my body needed this. So I had to feed into that. But I was still terrified. And sometimes I would still artificially stop myself, like I shouldn't be hungry, like I should put this down. Or, I still binged. I did stop for a while, but like it was all very confusing and it was all happening kind of all at once simultaneously. And like I would still drink, but I was kind of tiptoeing in this direction of like, let me see if I can give her what she needs and give her a little bit more of what she needs every day and eating more every day and honoring that hunger every day. And even though I was still binging, I was starting to see that eating more was a huge piece. Because that extreme hunger that I had actually leveled out pretty quickly. I still get extreme hunger every once in a while to this day, but that every single day, every single moment, extreme hunger leveled out pretty quickly. And the binges were still happening, but they weren't good. Like, they weren't enjoyable. They weren't getting me that high. They weren't giving me that pleasure that they used to. They didn't last as long. And I kind of got to this point where I would like start a binge and I'd be like, you know what? I don't actually think I want to do this. I don't think I like this. And I actually remember the first time that I was able to stop and put the food away and walk away. And I felt so fucking powerful. And really, the only reason I could do that, the only reason I could start implementing coping mechanisms was because I was fueling my body and I wasn't hungry. Like, this doesn't feel as great anymore because I actually don't want it. I'm not hungry. And it wasn't until I started fueling my body that I could start to put in place those other coping mechanisms for those moments where I felt like I really want to binge. I'm stressed. I'm bored. I'm anxious. I'm excited. I want to binge. And then I would do it and it wouldn't be that great. It wouldn't hit the spot. But I had no coping mechanisms, so I had to turn to new strategies. And that was really hard. And it was a lot of trial and error. And there was a lot of self-talk. There was a lot of screaming into a pillow. Let me try to get outside. Let me try to go for a bike ride. Let me try reading. Let me try, walking. Let me try playing with my cats. Let me try doing a puzzle. Let me try watching a TV show. Let me try distraction. Let me try delay. Let me try calling my mom. Let me try crying or journaling. I tried so many things and some of them worked and some of them didn't. And sometimes I would still binge and sometimes I would have to do 3 things and sometimes I'd have to do 1 thing and sometimes I'd have to do 7 things. And every time I felt like I was building a little piece of this foundation. I was still struggling. I wasn't quite on the exact same team of my body, but I kept throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what would stick in different situations and seeing what would work. And I became really aware of my feelings and my emotions and my thoughts and the way I spoke to myself and the beliefs that I was feeding into and working on those affirmations to rewrite those beliefs and like write new beliefs so that I could write new patterns so I could forgive myself and my body so I could like open my mind to the possibility that there is better, that I am okay, that I'm smart and I'm capable and I'm worthy and that I make mistakes and I learn from my mistakes and I'm changing and I'm celebrating those wins every single day. And I did this every day for about a year and a half. I built on the foundations and things got easier and I would take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And there were days where it was hard and there were days where I was like, I'm honestly sick of it. Like I'm fed up, I'm tired, I'm exhausted. But I'd pick myself up and I'd keep going. And it got easier every day and I took a step forward. And I realized how capable I was of shutting up the obsession and the buzz, when I was capable of understanding what hunger and fullness and cravings actually felt like, because I'd stifled that for so long. All I had was starving and stuffed. But being able to understand what those actually felt like in my body. And, you know, being able to think about my food and think about what I want to eat and then let it go. And like think about exercise and what I want to do today and then let it go. And think about what I want to have for dinner tonight and then let it go. I know that it's going to be okay and that I can think about it, but I don't have to obsess over it. I can enjoy it, I can be in the moment, I can be fed, and I can be energized and move on. And I have the capacity to think about other things now. I can think about the business I want to launch. I can think about school. I can think about working on my relationship with my partner. I can think about the places I want to travel. I can think about my friends and how I show up differently. And I get so many questions about my recovery. I get a lot of questions about my journey. I get a lot of questions about what I do as a coach for other people. And the question I get more often than any other question is, how did you recover? And I'm sure you can tell now that it's not just, oh, I did XYZ, or I did steps 1, 2, 3, and I recovered. Because it wasn't that easy. It was, let me try this, that worked. Let me try that, that didn't work. I had a setback. I will try something new and I feel lost. There was a lot of blind trust and there was a lot of rebuilding connections with my body. So the high level answer is mindset shifts, growth mindset, believing in yourself, loving yourself enough to be able to make those mistakes and forgive yourself and move on. Building those coping mechanisms, gentle nutrition so your body is fed so you can actually use those coping mechanisms to take the next steps, to build habituation with your food. Those things actually work. It wasn't linear. It wasn't easy. It was harder than being in residential treatment. And I don't think I could have done it alone. Yeah, I'm a coach. Yeah, I help people. And sometimes people hear me say that because I I think that help is so important that I want you to buy something from me. And of course I am here to help people. I'm here to help people because I got help and I saw how important it was. And the honest truth is that I could not have done this by myself. I would not have known what steps to take. I would have not gotten through those really scary moments without someone next to me being like, this is okay. This is normal. This happens. You're going to be okay. Keep going. And I think having my coach and my therapist and my partner next to me was like, you know, it was what made these moments happen. When I felt lost and confused and scared, they helped get me through it. They helped me with the shifts, the mindset shifts. They helped me with eating more every day. They helped me understand what was going on when I was craving certain foods and when I was craving numbness. They helped me understand how deserving I am and my body is. And they helped me in those moments when I was crying and I was frustrated and I felt like I had nowhere else to go. And if you've made it to the end, thank you for spending Tuesday morning with me. And I want to wrap all of this up into kind of training action steps for any of you. If any of this whole story resonated with you and you want to make those shifts, I want you to start with the mindset shifts, the affirmations, the growth mindset. Start with understanding that you're not alone ever and that you deserve help. You deserve healing. You deserve care. You do. Your body does. You deserve that life. You deserve to be normal. You deserve everything on your vision board. You deserve everything you dream of. You deserve to be loved. You deserve to be held. You deserve to be cared for. I love you. I care about you. I'm here to help you. I'm here to hold your hand through this until you can hold your own hand and give yourself a hug and be on the journey that you need to take.